If I was to make a brand new Genshin Impact account right this second and start all over again with the knowledge that I have now, this tier list is how I would prioritize my characters. Let me just say this plainly, this is not a guide. So let's just get on with it in no particular order. And starting with Ayato. Now Ayato is going to be the first character to head up the regret later tier, which is a good chance for me to explain what the hell this tier even means. Essentially, it's the exact same as the spend to secure that C0 tier, with the main difference being I know I would eventually regret this character later because I would just grow bored of it. Even though I initially really loved his playstyle, I am a really big fan of attack spamming attack speed characters, and Ayato, it really does do that quite well, with the main problem that is, like, honestly, anytime I'm using a Hydro DPS nowadays, I'm using Neuvillette. Neuvillette has been used constantly since he came out, and I am nowhere near bored of him. I love him just as much as he released, and right now he's really stealing the spotlight, and just, I can't really ever imagine a time where I want to use Ayato anymore. But there was definitely a time where I used him all the time, and that was well before Fontaine mostly. And Ayato's just one of those characters that I need to pull to realize that I don't really want him anymore. Kazuha, probably one of the most important characters that any account should own. He opens up so many different team comps and really just fits in like anywhere. Not only that, but he's amazing in the overworld in many different ways. Kazuha is, well, simply put, he's one of the best characters in the game. That has never really changed since he's come out, and honestly, I would never pass him up. The only difference is I have constellations for him right now, and if I could, I would definitely refund those, and I would just stick with C0 because he really doesn't need a C1 or C2. Klee. Look, we all love Klee. Most of us love Klee. Some of us know some people who don't like her, and that's honestly a red flag. You should work on that. Not liking her gameplay, though, that is completely understandable. Klee is a rather clunky feeling character. Of course, there are ways to make her feel good, but when you start doing that, you're effectively playing one of the most mechanically challenging characters in the game for, sadly, a really unimpressive output. I've had my fun with Klee in the past, and I intend to have more fun with her in the future now that I've fully ascended mine after 4 years. But if I was on a new account, she would be a relatively easy skip. Kokomi. This one's actually a little bit challenging, you know? On one hand, you have Circle Impact, one of the most frustrating things to experience in Genshin long term. It may not be so bad at first, but once you use enough characters like Bennett, Kokomi, Kazuha's Burst, or whatever else it may be, things that trap you in a circle, you start to feel like a caged animal that just wants out. On the other hand, Kokomi has been a part of a lot of fun teams, and in a lot of ways kind of irreplaceable due to the fact that Dendro is just insane, and being able to heal and apply AoE Hydro at a relatively good rate reliably is good. That being said, from a gameplay perspective, what she does is not the most interesting thing in the world, especially if you don't need exactly what she's doing. So for that reason, I'm gonna put her in the give it that free-to-play try tier, which, if it wasn't clear, basically just means like I would throw Primos at her, but if she passed me by and I didn't get her, it wouldn't be the end of the world. Lyney. Let me just say right out the gate, I love bow charge attack users, specifically these special ones like Ganyu, Lyney, and Tighnari. However, Lyney has been a special exception from this, as I really thought I would like him. I got to try him before I actually pulled for him, and I was like, yeah, I like this character, but the moment I got him and started to use him, I was very disappointed. These days, the only time I'm thankful to have Lyney is when I'm looking for Fontaine materials, and I just want his ability because the interactive map in the water areas is not always good enough. But yeah, if it wasn't clear, Lyney would be a hard skip for me knowing what I know now. On to Nahida, the Dendro Archon. Of course, she is going in the Whale for Cons tier. I have constellations for her, and I would do it again. I have her C2 now, and I would do it again. I know a lot of you Dendro haters are out there. You're sick of the reactions. You're sick of the Dendro meta. I don't care. I play whatever's fun, and Dendro is pretty damn fun. And if you don't have Nahida, Dendro is pretty damn not fun in a lot of cases. Navia, going into that spend to secure that C0 tier. Why? Because she is fun. Navia's playstyle really tickles my fancy, even though I'm really not much of a big number all at once kind of guy. I definitely prefer a ton of little small numbers coming really fast. I love attack speed. And even though Navia is the antithesis of that, it does not stop my enjoyment of her at all. I find that the fact that her big damage is tied to a skill and not an elemental burst, and it also has multiple charges, is way more satisfying than something like building Raiden as a DPS and using her burst. Neuvillette, probably my favorite character gameplay wise in the entire game. Why is that? It is 100% because of his charge attack. I've talked about this in the past, but the fact that it is not bound by auto aim is one of the best things ever. Genshin's auto aim pisses me off on a daily basis. Not only that, but one of my favorite kinds of attacks in games are things where you hold down a button to do continuous damage or just channeled abilities. And an attack like Neuvillette's charge attack beam is something that I never expected to get in Genshin. I resigned to never having something like this, and I'm really happy it's here, and it's going to take a lot to dethrone me, but there are characters that are close that are coming up. And if it wasn't clear, he's obviously in the Whale for Cons tier because I have constellations for him and I want more. I want that C6. He might be my first someday, maybe. I don't know. I still don't have a limited one. Nilou, sadly, she's going to go in the regret later tier because once again, just like Ayato, I really enjoy what she does and I think she does a good job at it. The only problem is playing her teams do get a little bit stale. Eventually, just like I have right now, I've kind of come to regret adding her because like I just don't want to use her anymore. Shenhe, definitely a secure that C0. What she does is incredibly unique. You don't often get characters that buff flat damage, and that means that any cryo character that may come out in the future that does a lot of hits is going to benefit from you having Shenhe, and that does apply to several characters that I enjoy. So she's definitely a pickup. Like, I love having her, even though I may not use her all the time. I am so happy to have her in my roster. Not only that, but I think Genshin has shown that really unique characters like her tend to be respected. They don't get replaced easily. But if this was Star Rail, she'd probably already have about 2 power cup versions by now. Raiden Shogun, at one point in time, she would have been a whale for cons. Obviously, things have changed quite a bit. Not only am I sick to death of her just huge burst playstyle, I did it a lot way back in the day, and I'm so done with it. Also, my Raiden has graduated to be more of a Dendro support, especially for long-range characters like Tighnari, who doesn't exactly work super well with Kuki. Raiden is my elemental mastery Dendro bot, and I love her for that. And for that, she goes in the secure the C0 tier because I think she is an incredible tool to have. Just not a big fan of her raw DPS playstyle, even though I do maintain that it is still very good. It's just not for me is all. Sigewinne, I actually have no idea how to pronounce his character's name. It doesn't really come up much, and it's definitely not going to in my polls because I skipped her on this account and I would sure as shit skip her on a brand new account. I'm not going to say she's useless. She has a relatively interesting kit. It may be underwhelming at parts, but I think what it does look kind of fun, just not enough for me to want to wish for is all. Tartaglia's about the same boat as Ayato. He would have to go in the regret later tier. He's a character that I would have to play because I'm really intrigued at what he does, which is still unique after all of this time. Like, nobody stand switches like Child, and I think his Riptide is still very interesting. The worst part about him would just be that he feels rather underwhelming to play, and if he got numerical buffs, I would definitely still put him in the secure the C0 tier because I love his playstyle. He just not the most satisfying character to play results wise. Venti into the skip tier, and spoiler alert, he's going to be the only Archon receiving this honor. You want to call it an honor? It doesn't really matter. Venti is still a useful character. I will maintain that. I don't think Venti's bad. It's just I don't use him much anymore. That being said, he has come a long way in usefulness. You know, gone are the days where every DPS we have looks like a little toddler smacking their stick at a pinata that Venti raised a little too high in the sky. Many characters we have now can actually reach up there, and that kind of increases Venti stocks. Even though I know exactly how to aim his burst by going point blank range and shooting it past enemies into the pack, I still hate auto aim on this character, and it kind of just ruins the whole experience. If I could shoot his black hole at my feet and just suck everything to that one central point, I would use him a lot more, but right now I can't be bothered. I just use Kazuha. Wanderer, secure the C0. Why? Because he can fly. I'm not even kidding. That's the only thing I need to know. Wriothesley also going into the secure that C0 tier. Characters that can punch are few and far between in Genshin, and most of them are kinda And as if the punching was not enough, and for the most part it is, I love that Wriothesley's kind of a bruiser. He has built-in healing, and he doesn't really need a healer to sustain if you play him well enough. Bonus points in that regard if you get some of his early constellations, like I currently have, but if I was to do things all over again, I don't know if I would go for constellations again. I think he's definitely a strong candidate for the Whale for Cons tier, but definitely not for power, just for personal love of the character, even though I really don't use him as much as this love would reflect. You can blame Neuvillette and a certain father for that one. Xianyun, another character going into the secure that C0 tier. Another character that has amazing overworld application, but also enables and buffs an entirely new playstyle for many characters, possibly future ones. Just like Shenhe, she is a character that I must have on my account because you never know when her stocks are just going to skyrocket. And of course, next is Xiao, which Photoshop dictated, which obviously, as you know, this has not been alphabetical so far. They just happen to end up together. But in any case, Xiao is one of the biggest beneficiaries of having Xianyun in the game. He has gone way up in usefulness, but Xiao's playstyle still drives me absolutely nuts, and it's for that reason that he's just going down in the skip tier, because it does not matter how much better he gets, I don't want him. Miko. This one may actually surprise some of you if you're familiar with me, but I'm putting her in the secure that C0 tier. Why? Because she's got a very unique playstyle. Even now, no one really quite does what she does. A sort of totem-based character is not exactly what you would expect to see in Genshin given all the things we have. She very much goes in the like, I don't use her enough, but I would like to use her more category, and I can make that happen anytime, but I just like having her. She opens up possibilities, and I enjoy what she does. Yelan, my favorite character prior to Neuvillette's release, obviously going in the whale for cons tier because obviously I have C4 and I would do that again. In fact, I still hope to get to C6 someday, I just don't know if it's as high a priority as it once was. That being said, Yelan is one of the best overworld tools you could possibly have, even though I feel like her time may be coming with Natlin around the corner. Those characters look insane for overworld movement. Regardless of that, even if she was to fall from grace in that regard, one, it does not hurt to have multiple characters like that, especially in the same party, and two, Yelan is one of the crazy supports in the goddamn game. Shove her in any team and she's going to do something even if you're not activating her burst, which really tells you all you need to know about how goddamn good she is. Yoimiya, this one admittedly hurts a little. I'd have to put her in the skip tier. It's just when you have the context of all the characters that we have now, it is really hard to justify pulling for Yoimiya, even though I do enjoy that kind of play style. But admittedly, Yoimiya's does get a little tiring after a while. I mean, how can it not? Zhongli, you can't really pass up on the strongest shield in the game. His so many applications, many characters that I love barely function at all without him. Like, of course I gotta pick Zhongli out. Albedo, just skip him. Don't need to say much. He's one of the few characters that basically just got like a kind of better version of him later, and if I could, I would just swap them. Alhaitham, as pretty much our premier Dendro DPS, he is a obvious secure that C0 for me. I like to have the elemental diversity, but let me say this, if Alhaitham was any other element other than Dendro, there's a pretty good chance I would skip him, but I just really like having that one strong Dendro DPS. I mean, I guess I do have Tighnari, but Alhaitham is obviously a lot better than him, and he's also a lot more AoE friendly, which is obviously what the Abyss tends to favor. Arataki Itto. Still my favorite character hands down personality wise and to see in events, but when it comes to gameplay, Itto has fallen quite a lot. Not exactly a fault of his playstyle, it's mostly the tied to the elemental burst and fusion playstyle. Those characters have been driving me nuts more and more as the game goes on, especially when two of the best DPS currently in the game, Neuvillette and Arlecchino. Arlecchino has what I consider the best infusion in the game, and Neuvillette just doesn't even need one because he's a catalyst and a very strong character. And these characters they make the idea of playing characters like Itto with a elemental burst infusion just that much worse to even think about. However, I do recognize that my love of Itto as a character and from events and stuff would definitely influence me to pull him, and sadly I definitely have come to regret getting his constellations, and I feel like without those I definitely just regret having him, period. That being said, at the same time, I still plan to get a C6 someday. I want it because this sounds super fun, like how random it is and how much it could just pop off. I don't know, I still love Itto and I want him to be the best Itto he can be. But with the way I play Genshin now, I would not be spending as much to get to C4 in the first place, and if I wasn't this close, I definitely wouldn't be getting C6. Arlecchino, character that I never expected to like as much as I do. But now that I have her, holy hell am I addicted. I have not stopped using her since she came out. Like, she is the only character that can consistently get me off of Neuvillette. And it's not because I like her more than Neuvillette necessarily, it's just because one, she's newer, and two, goddamn is she effective everywhere. She's strong as hell. She's got the best infusion in the game, hands down. She's got multiple viable teams, whether it be Vape or Monopyro or Overload. Like, goddamn, like, such a satisfying character. Everybody should get Arlecchino. I would definitely get her again. I would definitely get cons for her again, just like I have now. Obviously, she's in the whale for cons tier. Amazing character. Baizhu, I have defended this character so much. Very divisive, but what other people say does not matter. I love what Baizhu does. I love the fact that he has a party-wide heal on an elemental skill. Not only that, a very potent heal, but more importantly than anything, he is a crucial piece for my favorite Neuvillette team, and it's for that reason that I would have to put him in the secure the C0. That being said, if Neuvillette was taken out of the picture, I would bump him down to the give it that free-to-play try tier. Chiori, a character that I actually have skipped, But if I could go back and I would skip out Beidou, I would get Chiori in his place. As for that reason that I would put her in the give it that free to play try tier, because I think she is a unit that is worth pulling, but with a character like Itto being in the regret later tier, where else am I really going to use her reasonably? I think there are other teams she does fit into. It's just I don't really have much of an interest in that. Clorinde, a character that I had every intention of skipping. Then the moment I tried her trial, my fate was sealed and I had to have her. Just in this very video, I've mentioned multiple times how much I love high attack speed, and that is Clorinde. Clorinde is high attack speed spam. She's going in the secure that C0 because damn, like, unique playstyle. Very cool. But not only that, but like, honestly, I don't really have many Electro DPS that I love playing anymore. There is one that I do love, but he hasn't come up on the list yet, but he's coming up right now, and this is a coincidence. Cyno. Sadly, Cyno shares a lot of things with Itto. I love the character. I love seeing him in the game. I love the puns, but when I actually play him, the burst infusion is horrible, and Cyno is probably the worst single example of a burst infusion in the entire game. It lasts a very long time, requires very specific characters to function well, and even under perfect circumstances, Cyno just doesn't do that well. So sadly, I gotta put him in the skip tier, and that's another one that hurts to do. Emilie, another character that I never actually heard the real pronunciation for. In any case, character that I am currently skipping on my main account right now. She's obviously the newest character in the game, and she's only been out for a couple days, and so I really don't have much of an opinion on her. I did her trial, and really at that moment I was like, maybe? But then I remember that Natlan is right around the corner, and I would definitely rather save my primos for that. So now I'm gonna put her in the skip tier, but honestly I don't know how I'm gonna feel about her. Maybe I'll regret skipping her in a couple months. I don't know. Eula, nope, not a chance. Skip. Furina, yes, whale for cons. Easily deserving of the title of the most versatile support in the entire game, and she's just goddamn so overpowered. She can walk on water, she can be a surprise healer in a pinch, and she can pump out insane damage by herself while being one of the biggest damage steroids to your team. Obviously an insane character. I got cons once, I would do it again. Ganyu, quite an old character at this point, one with a very divisive playstyle, one that I actually happen to enjoy. I love having her in my arsenal, even if she doesn't see the most use nowadays. I maintain that she is still strong enough to do most content in the game. She may struggle in Abyss here and there, but despite the fact that she has two contemporaries in the charge attack categories, being Tighnari and Lyney, I don't think either of them really hold a candle to what she does. Lyney is probably a stronger character than Ganyu, and I recognize that, but I think what Ganyu does is a little bit more unique than what Lyney does. Despite those positive thoughts I have for her, I'm still just going to put her in the give it that free to play try tier because I really don't think she's worth going for, but she is a character that I would like to have. Now we're approaching the end, and I gotta say, it's probably a good thing that most of you probably aren't listening by now, because these last two are going to piss some people off. Now, once again, this is a hypothetical, and it's only my opinion on what I would do. It has nothing to do with other people, but in any case, Hu Tao. In a world where Arlecchino never existed, Hu Tao would still be very high on this list, definitely at least in the spend to secure that C0, but probably in the whale for cons to at least get the C1. But now that Arlecchino's here, and I love using Arlecchino, I'm probably never going to use Hu Tao again. So I'm going to put her in the skip tier. I find her playstyle particularly enjoyable on either C0 or C1, and at this point I think she's just been thoroughly replaced by Arlecchino in just about every way. For the last character, Ayaka. Beloved by many, but not beloved by me. I do enjoy parts of Ayaka. I enjoy her charge attack playstyle, but her elemental burst has been something that I've always been critical of. I don't like the sound design. I find it wholly unsatisfying to use, despite the fact that it does a ton of damage and rips a single target apart, provided they stand still and let you do it, which is usually no problem with a freeze team, but I don't like freeze teams. Funnily enough, the biggest draw to Ayaka to me personally right now is her dash, which is probably everyone's least favorite thing about her. Some characters just don't always withstand the test of time, you know? Arlecchino makes it so that I don't think I will ever use Hu Tao again, and a character like Wriothesley pretty much ensures that I would never use Ayaka again. The times where I would use Ayaka are when I need a really strong cryo DPS, and I know she's pretty reliable. Now, I have Wriothesley, and goddamn is he fun. I just wish he didn't have to share a weapon with my Wanderer. Such a pain in the ass. Needless to say, Ayako would be getting skipped. And there you have it, a whole lot of DPS in the skip tier because it's way too easy to just have a way too many cooks in the kitchen situation going on with DPS. And let's just say not even something like Imaginarium Theater with its wide roster of characters required could convince me to pull for some of these characters in modern Genshin.
Attaboy!